today with our RettEd topic, transitioning into adulthood. This is part 3 in our series. It's quality of life and life planning. Part 1 was on transition of medical care. Part 2 was on financial and legal planning, and you can find both of those recordings on our YouTube channel. But if you're watching this webinar because you have a teen or adult with Rett syndrome and you're feeling anxious or lost about this transition, I want you to pause and first realize what a great job you've already done in raising your extraordinary child. You've educated yourself about the diagnosis. You've made it through many years of school, IEPs, the regression period, health issues, different procedures, possibly multiple hospital admissions, changes in your family makeup, juggling work, life, family. Hopefully you've had some great successes along the way with adaptation through AAC or assistive tech, or you know that it's never too late to start, and maybe this can be a new goal for your child's adult life. But I want you first to celebrate how far you've come and all that you've accomplished along this journey. Understand that you're already a skilled and practiced advocate. You know that building a team to share responsibilities and decision-making, that planning ahead for a variety of scenarios is key to both the mental health and emotional health of yourself, as well as that of your child. We know that with decades of better understanding of the natural history of Rett syndrome, with strong early intervention and better symptomatic treatments, we've improved longevity in Rett syndrome. It's not uncommon, and we need to plan for a life well lived into 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond. We know of some that have reached their 70s. So let's embrace this success. Let's build on it. Let's better understand our role in their successful adulthood, and even more, plan for it. And I hope that from hearing from our 3 families in 3 different states today, that you'll be inspired with some very creative ideas that they've come up with and creative ways that they have built lives for their loved ones. They have experienced changes along the way that have changed what plans they thought were going to happen at age 22. Things changed at 30, things changed at 40. And but they've all, I think, are going to share some really great examples with us. So first, I'd like to talk to you about Paul and Janelle Yoakum. Paul and Janelle celebrated their 49th anniversary in October of 2022. They have 2 beautiful daughters, Jill, age 46 with Rett syndrome, and Jamie, age 44. Jamie's married with 2 children, ages 16 and 13. Their goal is to help encourage and provide hope for parents that have a child or adult with disabilities. They were members of the Nebraska Autism Society. Paul was vice president of NCAS, the National Society of Autistic Children, until 1990. They started 2 special ed Sunday school classes for children with disabilities in their previous churches in Nebraska, and they started the Rett Syndrome Chicago Area Support Group in 1989. I know many of our Illinois families with us today are familiar with the Yoakums and are very good friends with them. In 1992, it became a 501c3 charity called the Rett Syndrome Association of Illinois. He's the founder of RSAI and has been president twice and is now currently the vice president. Paul and Janelle started the October is Rett Syndrome Awareness Month in October of 1992. We do have them for thanking that tradition, which is longstanding and is worldwide now. He was selected by JCPenney's as the National Community Service Award winner twice for his volunteer work for autism and Rett syndrome in 1982 and 1988. Paul was a director and 1 year later elected to be chairman of the board of directors for the International Rett Syndrome Association. They started the Live in Silent charity auction fundraiser event for the Rett Syndrome organization. They helped start the Partners in Adult Learning Program, PAL, in 1996 with 3 other families. They have an active role in the running of the PAL program. They play an active role in the group home that Jill lives in, and they'll be joining us in a few moments to give us more details, along with Sheila, who is with Clarebrook. On to our next family. I would like to be able to welcome Megan Ladenberger and Shanna Sowers. Megan is Brittany's sister. She is age 34. Shanna is her mom. They have a very large family. They live in Kansas. Some family live in Nebraska. And they have created a life. I'm so sorry, my phone. Let me turn this off. There we go. So they're going to be sharing a story of how they live across state lines, about how they have a shared custody arrangement with multiple family members, and that keeps Brittany both excited, engaged, well supported, and gives everybody a little bit of break with the challenges that come with her life. And our next and final speaker is Teresa Bartolotta, who many of you know is a consultant with IRSF. She is one of the primary investigators of the communication guidelines in Rett syndrome. She is an author, a publisher. She is quite an accomplished professional. But more importantly, she's mom to Lisa, who is age 33. And they spent the majority of their life living in New Jersey and have recently moved to Georgia. So she's going to talk a little bit about what that meant for them to change states and what that meant to change services for Lisa as an adult. All of our speakers are going to talk about how they fund the programs that their children belong in and are participating in. They're going to talk about how things were affected during the shutdown in COVID, and how some things have opened and some things haven't, and what life looks like now and what their hopes and dreams are for the next 10 years and beyond. So again, I'd like to say welcome. I want to thank all of our speakers for sharing their wonderful stories with us. I know it takes a certain amount of vulnerability and risk to share something that is very emotional, but I think that you have really given us a lovely picture of possibilities. So what I'd like to do now is stop sharing screen. I'd like to invite Paul and Janelle and Sheila to come on. I'm going to go on mute, and let's hear more about your lives in Illinois.
Paige, thank you. And first, Paige, thank you for all the great work you do for the Rett Syndrome organization. We appreciate all that you do and for helping make a difference there. So now I'll let Janelle start.
Just to give you a little background about our daughter, Jill, like Paige said, she's 46 now. And Jill was born in 1976. Well, back in 1976, nothing was known in the United States about Rett syndrome. Not until 1983 did it come across to the United States. Jill was born normal, healthy. She was always smiling, happy. So we didn't really think anything was different about her. She was slow in walking, and she had about 18 words by the age 2. Also at age 2, Paul was transferred from Illinois to Nebraska. So he had a new job, we had a new home, and also our daughter Jamie was born. So lots of new things happening, but also the new thing that happened was Jill became very uncontrollable. We, took her to doctors. She was just hyper, and but most of the doctors said it's jealousy of a new baby, or you need to spend more time with her. We're doing too much with Paul's new job. The doctors found out that that wasn't the problem. We thought she couldn't hear because she ignored us. That wasn't a problem. And finally, we were recommended to go to a psychiatrist. And when we took her there, she had bruise marks on her forehead. She'd bang her head on the fireplace. She had bite marks on her arm, and she'd also bite on her clothes, so her clothes would be all shredded. The psychiatrist thought we were probably parent abusers. So he said, can I keep, he didn't tell us that, but we could just tell. And he said, I want to keep her 3 to 7 days. Well, after 7 days, he said, still need to keep her longer. And this ended up being 11 weeks. And you can imagine how hard it was. She was only 2.5 at that time. So after 11 weeks, he diagnosed her as autism. And we'd never heard of autism before, but we went home, cried our hearts out, and we said, this can't be possible. There's nothing wrong with our beautiful girl. But we got very involved in the Autism Society. And I think it was about when Jill was 7, we were transferred back to the Chicago area. And two people actually called us and sent us letters from the Rett Syndrome Association, seeing our picture in there as a family. And Jill was clasping her hands like a lot of the Rett syndrome girls do with their hand movements. They sent us all the characteristics of Rett syndrome, and Jill fit it perfectly. So that's when our journey began with Rett syndrome.
So then we get her into a special ed school in one of the local school districts here. And the years start going on. And then as she starts getting close towards 19 or so, some other parents and I met together and said, what are we going to do when the school bus doesn't come any longer? That's my prop. Anyway, so we started meeting here and just saying that we need to go out and start researching what's out there in the community. So we went to several different agencies here, and we didn't like what we seen. We either it seemed like babysitting, the programs were understaffed, or if we go into one of the rooms, there would be like 6 kids in there in wheelchairs and a couple just in regular chairs. They were sitting there drooling with their heads leaning over, watching TV. And again, we've seen this over and over again. We were fortunate we were told about Clearbrook, and we went to see Carl Amell, who was the president of Clearbrook at that time. And we said, Carl, we have this idea about a program that we'd like to have called PAL, Partners in Adult Learning. And we told him about it, where the kids would come to the program during the day, and then on occasions they would go out in the community, they would do volunteer jobs, and they just do fun activities. So they're not in the program every day. He says, I love the idea. I'll do everything I can for you to make it happen. But one thing is I have no money. So we come back and said, challenge accepted. We'll do our own fundraisers. So which we started doing. The other thing Carl did at that day was he asked Sheila Lulo, who was Vice President of Adult Services at that time, if she would lead our group for us. And we're very pleased and honored to have Sheila with us here today. And we spent 2 years of meetings with Sheila from 1996 to 1998, developing this program. And she helped us define our mission, our vision, and make it a reality, helped us get state funding. And Sheila's going to talk in a few minutes here just about some of the things that some more details about the program. And when you have a program like ours that you have to self-fund, you'd like to have a rich uncle, but we've not found one yet. So we're out there fundraising. We even did a fundraiser before the program started in 1998. And we just finished up in October our 25th fundraiser that we do. And as we meet with Sheila, Sheila, why don't you go ahead and tell us some more details from your end, please?
Sure. Thanks for that introduction. So at that time, I was, as Paul said, the vice president. I became the executive vice president at Clearbrook, where I served for well over 40 years. I recently retired from that role, but I'm still working in a small part-time capacity, focusing on quality outcomes with Clearbrook. But as Paul and Janelle said, they came to Clearbrook with this dream of a day program like nothing we'd ever done before. But we agreed that we would do all we could and help them access as much of public funds as we could. But we knew the kind of program that they were dreaming about would have a pretty significant financial deficit. And so the families committed to raising the money. And I will say, all these years later, continue to do that every year. But But in order to achieve the dream of the program that the families wanted, it required a strong partnership. And so we agreed that we would meet on a monthly basis to talk about the program, to review the finances of it, and that we would really empower the families to make the decisions about how the program would run, providing them with all the information that they needed in order to make those decisions. And so that continues to this day. Those meetings occur monthly. When I was, before I retired, I would chair those meetings, and we would look at the budget and make decisions. And working in this field for as long as I did, I was always the conservative one, wanting to cut here and give up a little there in order to make the finances work better. But the families were committed to continuing to raise the funds to cover the deficit and keeping the quality of the services that they dreamed about. And so we worked together, balancing those decisions over the years. In terms of the funding, how is the program funded? So we do access as much funds as we can. All the individuals that participate do have waiver funds. Some have what we call home-based services funds, where they live at home with their family, but receive funds to use for some of the services that are needed. Some live residentially, and so we access the day program funds through that. In addition to that, we do what we can to support the families in getting other kinds of funds like grants and other kinds of awards. And then the families had agreed from the outset and continue to do it. Each family contributes just under $400 a month, every month, to the program. And then they raise the funds, and on an annual basis, they raise, I would say, about $100,000 a year. So it's a pretty significant commitment that the families are making, but have continued to do that all these years, and has resulted in the success of the program, which is very unique. Highly staffed. So for the participating residents, we have very close to a 1-to-1 ratio. So it's an outstanding program, and it's been my pleasure to be part of that partnership all these years. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Janelle and Paul, and they'll tell you a little more of their story.
Probably when Jill was 30, we had kept her home all these years and taken her to different activities. But we were approached by Clearbrook of a group home opening, and they were starting a group home with autistic girls, but they also thought it would be a good fit for Jill. So this was a very tough decision for us, after taking care of her all these years, and we didn't have any relatives close by. Jamie's sister, or Jill's sister, Jamie, lived about 3 hours away, and she had a family, and I didn't want her to be responsible for Jill, because as we got older, it was harder for us to take care of her and do everything for her. So after much consideration, we decided this was a good fit for everyone. And I was told just to pretend Jill was going away to college. That's what most people her age have done. So I tried that, and it did help some, but I think the first 3 months, I probably cried a lot. And then I checked in with the staff. We would go there every day for about 3 weeks, training them how to give her a bath, how to feed her, how to dress her, and her likes and dislikes. I think now that that was the best decision that we made. We still pick her up on weekends. She's been there 16 years. And when we take her back, she seems happy, and it's just like her regular home.
One of the things that we had talked about also is starting up a group home for girls with Rett syndrome, young adults with Rett syndrome. And as we talked about that idea, we found out in our case, it wasn't really workable because of the cost of the home. And it's not so much the cost of the home, it's the staffing that Clearbrook provides for us. The staff and the training, you're under a tremendous amount of rules and regulations through the state. And for example, I know when they moved into the O'Hare group home, it was a regular home that they converted over to more bedrooms for it, but they had to spend an extra $10,000 just for the water system in it in case there was a water problem, that the sprinkler heads in each room would turn on and prevent a fire from spreading. So it's those costs are number one. The other thing is the staff cost. So if you have 4 young ladies with Rett syndrome in that home and you have an emergency, how many staff do you need to get them all out fairly fast? Well, you could have 3 or 4 that maybe can walk, or some in wheelchairs, but you don't have that amount of time. So because of that, it's nice to find partners that have other children with disabilities that are going to be in a group home, and maybe you start talking to them about being in a group home altogether, because I think that's the way to make it work nowadays because of the funding. Again, for somebody to be in a group home, at least as far as Clearbrook goes, most of the residents there can toilet themselves, they can dress themselves. And again, with our daughter Jill, she cannot do any of those things. She's a 24/7 girl that needs help, and that's probably true for most all of our girls with Rett syndrome. So you have to have a balance of trying to, with the staffing and with the program that you're going to have there. And our future plans for Jill is just to keep the fundraising going, keep her day program going. And we're very active in her group home, just trying to make sure things get done for Christmas, the decorations. And these nonprofits nowadays are operating on a shoestring because of the funding's been cut from them. There's not a lot of funding out there nowadays, so you got to go out and really make it happen. And just a couple thoughts from being an advocate, Janelle and I, for over 40 years. You're, as Paige said, you're your best advocate for your daughter, and congratulations on being proactive with her. We have family members and friends that are very supportive of our daughter. And as you go to meetings, as you start to try to dream about a PAL program or make whatever you want to have happen, make sure you're taking notes so you can come back and talk to those people later on. There's a lot of turnover between the nonprofits nowadays. Get involved in their school, be visible to them, and do follow-up. That's the biggest key. And again, being visible. You need a lot of partners, and even with your state elected officials or your local elected officials, take your daughter in to see them so they know that you're not talking about just somebody that they've never seen. Now they can put a face with the cause that you have, because there's money out there. You have to be not scared to ask for the money. If you don't ask, you won't get. And PAL's made a difference in our lives, in our group home, in our lives too. It's worth the extra effort. And Janelle and I have a saying about winning, and winning is never giving up on your daughter or on yourself. You don't win every day, but we don't give up. So Paige, back to you.
Thank you. Wonderful advice. And you've done a great job in creating a program. And I know it's taken a lot of hard work and a lot of collaboration, and but you've done it. And we really appreciate you sharing the story. And Sheila, thank you for joining from the professional side to share what has been required of you to partner with the Yocums and the other families. I'd like to invite Megan and Shanna to please come on now. And I didn't have a chance to read Brittany's bio. So Megan, if you have some time, you can read that, or if you'd like, I'm happy to go ahead and read it. It's really beautiful. And I think having some background on Brittany would be a nice way to start.
If you want to go ahead and read it, that is totally fine with us.
I can read it, Megan.
Okay.
All right. So our daughter Brittany, she's 34. She was born in April of 1988, and she attended, had early education in our home until she attended school. She attended the public schools to age 21, and then she went to what we called it college for her, but it was at the community college, and it was a 2-year program where it gave us some time to determine what we were going to do with her for her next phase of life. And so toured a couple different day service programs, and decided on mid-Nebraska, which is in Hastings, Nebraska. And that's where we were all from originally. And so she is currently still attending there. And we have opted to not put her into a group home. I think a lot of the decision was because she's had a lot of health problems throughout her life. In fact, last year over a gallbladder issue, we about lost her, but she's had 6 bouts of pneumonia and just a lot of different things, scoliosis rods, fundoplications, an Emmons procedure where they cut the stomach off her esophagus and attached it to the intestines so she can never eat through her mouth anymore. And that was due to a severe reflux. So we opted that we want to be her primary care providers, her dad and myself. And now Megan, her older sister, Megan and I both live in Salina, Kansas. And so we basically, Brittany kind of goes back and forth to get home community-based services, the HCBS services for the day program and respite. She does have to have a physical address. So she's always remained in Nebraska, stays at her dad's house. And since Megan and I have moved to Salina, we checked into what it would take to get her transferred to Kansas, because Megan is ultimately her next guardian. Her dad and I both share her, but Megan's been 100% invested with her sister. And in fact, she's the assistant director of special ed, so at a co-op. So that's always been something that's been a part of her life because she grew up with Brittany's needs. And so we found out in Kansas there's a 10-year wait list, which was very deflating to me because I did not realize there was a wait list when we came to Kansas. And I went through the Disability Planning Organization of Kansas and went through the whole application process. And then they said, okay, now you need to find a case manager, and then they'll help you apply for CanCare, and you'll have to apply for crisis funding for her, and there's no guarantee she'll get it. Well, when I contacted a case manager, she said, well, you can't even apply for CanCare until she resides here in Salina, Kansas. And I said, well, if she resides here, she loses her Medicaid, which is her secondary provider. We do have insurance on her yet, and loses her HCBS funding. And they said, well, that's the chance you're going to have to take. Well, with all her medical bills, we have opted to not do that until we absolutely have to. And it's a good thing we didn't, because like I said, last year, she endured 8 months of very serious issues because of a gallbladder that we did not even know was getting impacted with stones. So we have, she lives her life with all of us. She goes boating and camping, and, we've taken her whitewater rafting, and sometimes when she's in Salina and I have something going on, then Megan will have her, or we'll have her. We had her the whole week of Thanksgiving. We just kind of go back and forth. In the summer, we get her for extended periods once in a while. And I know in April, we're going to have her for a week and a half. Her dad and his wife want to go on vacation. And so we just make it work between all of us. We don't have a choice. It's just what we do. Brittany's first and foremost in our lives, and we do what's best for her. When she's hospitalized, it's a lot easier for me to get off and be with her. She usually gets hospitalized in Omaha at the UNMC. And prior to becoming an adult, it was Children's Hospital. And it's easier for me to get off because I can actually work from that site. But then between her dad and Megan, we just kind of round robin each other to get through all those weeks that she's been in the hospital and all the things that she's endured. Let's see, she's, so she attends Mid-Nebraska. She will stay at Mid-Nebraska until we eventually get her here. But like I said, we're gonna have to apply for CanCare. Then once she gets accepted for that, we have to apply for crisis funding, because we could not go 10 years on a wait list to wait for her. And Brittany is totally tube fed. She does not walk, she does not talk. She developed normally till she was 10 months of age, and then started to regress and lose some of her skills. And by the time she was 2.5, she had had pneumonia, I think 4 times by then. And we ended up going to the Texas Children's Hospital, the Rett Center there, and Dr. Dean or Alan, is it Glaze? I can't remember. It's been so long ago. I think he's the one that diagnosed Brittany, and that was a clinical diagnosis. But then when she was approximately 8 or 9, we got a phone call from them, and it was after they developed the test. They identified the gene and developed the test to determine, and they called us and said she did have the MECP2 mutation, and did give us the diagnosis, which we already knew from the clinical diagnosis, but it was like another confirmation. Brittany's really happy. She was very close to her grandfather that just passed away, and he was a huge supporter of Rett syndrome. So that was very sad because she was in the hospital with all of her gallbladder issues, and didn't get to even attend his funeral. So that was really sad for her, but I know he's watching over her every day. One of the things I want to tell families is, we kind of had to seek out our own answers for what we were going to do with Brittany, and not everybody does things the same. It's just what works for us. But one of the things that nobody really told us was that these girls have, well, even some of the boys probably have issues with their gallbladders, because Brittany's on a formula and gets seizure meds and calcium and things like that. They're prone to developing kidney stones and gallstones and things like that. We never had her gallbladder tested at all. And of course, she would cry at times, and we would give her things to calm her down. We had no idea that her gallbladder was getting completely impacted with stones. And how we found out was she started to turn yellow. And so we got her to Omaha, and they found out that she had so many stones impacted in her gallbladder that they even were all over inside her common bile duct, started growing onto the walls of the common bile duct, and started blocking off her liver. Well, it took several days and several specialists who kept turning her down, saying, the gastroenterology team didn't want to operate on her. The bariatric team didn't want to operate on her. Finally, the liver transplant team, head surgeon in Omaha, agreed to operate on Brittany because he said he's used to complex situations. And we thought everything went fine with her surgery. And then she started bleeding internally that night and basically crashed. I mean, her blood pressure just kept dropping and dropping. And she ended up in surgery from 10:30 at night to 6 in the morning before we could finally see her. And then infections set in and fistulas, and it was just 9 or 8 months of just awful things that she had to go through. Now, thank goodness that we have the respite set up through the HCBS funding. It helps pay for that because she could not go to Mid-Nebraska. Basically, she had to check out of there and then had in-home care. And she had to go to the hospital sometimes a few times a week for infusion therapy. And so the respite person was able to take Brittany in her van and get her there, because it's so hard for us to, get off work that many times for that many months. And so we just had to make things work. And I'm happy to say she's healthy again and she's back to herself. And I just want to caution parents that if your child is having the screaming fits and bringing their knees up to their stomach, and just different signs of being in pain, have them check their gallbladder. Because since then, we've found out from many families that they went through the same thing, only theirs didn't get that far along where it blocked off their liver. But when they started having problems or behavior problems, they then had a doctor check the gallbladder and found out, yes, they need their gallbladders out. So I don't know why it is that they target, that they have such a problem with them, but they do, just like pneumonia and seizures and things like that.
So when I think about what I would like to share from a sibling's perspective, so I'm actually just 2.5 years older than Brittany. Like my mom said, I always went to the same school as her, and I just think by nature I was involved in her classrooms and things like that. So I've always had a passion for it. But I think if I'm speaking to parents, I would just my advice would be to always include the siblings if they're an appropriate age, like in conversations when you're thinking about transition planning. I get asked all the time, how did your parents ask you, to be her guardian should something happen to them? I think I just kind of felt like that was just going to be something I was going to do. They didn't tell me I had to. They didn't ask me if I wanted to. That's just part of who I am and what I was going to do. But I think it's very, very important if you're a parent to include your other kids in those conversations, because it is hard, and empower them to be able to share their opinions and share in that decision making, and be a part of the plan, because we're trying to be proactive in our family by getting Brittany moved to Kansas before my mom and dad can't take care of her. But as you can see, there's lots of roadblocks, so we're probably going to have to be reactive even though we're trying really hard to be proactive. But like I said, I think it's just really important to make sure that you involve siblings if possible, and let them know that it's okay if they, don't want to be as involved in that process. And it's also okay if they do want to be. I had to be very candid with my husband when we met and got engaged, and I let him know this is a part of my life, and if you're marrying me, you're marrying my sister. And so he's been on board from the beginning. And but I just think having that open communication as a family and involving everyone has been most helpful. And then the other piece of advice, if there's other siblings on here, I would say is what I've noticed over the years, just after years and years of, advocating and fighting for Brittany, that sometimes enough's enough for my parents. And so one of the roles I've been also able to help play is just an advocate for Brittany and for them. So for example, when they were in the hospital and they weren't getting anywhere with the doctors, I was able to come in with like a fresh mindset and a fresh plate and help advocate. So that's the other piece I would just like to share if there's any siblings on here, would just be that, do your homework and always be in the know of what's going on with your siblings so that when the time comes, you can step in and advocate. And Paige, I think we'll turn it back over to you.
Megan, thank you. Shanna, thank you so much. Gosh, you've had quite a journey, and I'm glad that you've had a lot of support and have kept Brittany's health and happiness at the center of all of your decision making. And I just have to, as a parent of 3 children, I hope that my typical daughters have as much empathy and involvement and connectivity with Katie as she continues to grow. She's our oldest, so I just really value you and your commitment to your sister, and what an incredible ability you've had to do this shared living situation. I mean, and that you've opted to not do some day programs, right? That you said that her quality of life is most important, and you have created a day-to-day program that works for her. And that's okay. That's another view of what life can be. And there is no one way. I'd like now to invite Teresa Bartolotta on to share her story. And she has had quite a journey herself, and what she thought would be Lisa's life in her 20s has looked differently than what it now looks like in her 30s. And we're really eager to hear more from you, Teresa, from your life now in Georgia. So please introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about Lisa and about your life as parent to an adult with Rett syndrome.
Thank you so much, Paige. I just want to say I have enjoyed so much from listening to these first few stories, and I've learned some things. So we all can learn so much from each other. We continue to learn, and this is why we need this community. So thank you for this. So I'll begin with a little bit about Lisa. Lisa is 33, and she lives at home with myself and my husband. Lisa is ambulatory. She eats by mouth, and she can use an iPad with TD Snap app, a communication app with some assistance. You have to hold it for her or position it for her, but she can point with her index finger, and she can also pick up objects. Lisa can also vocalize, and she has been very healthy in terms of, her life as a young woman with Rett syndrome. Though she did have scoliosis surgery when she was 12. She started having seizures as a teenager. She continues to be on seizure medication, but has not had a seizure in 15 years. And she did have a very similar story as to Brittany, and started showing some pain and discomfort about 2 years ago. And she did end up having to have her gallbladder removed. And we've had a great improvement in her health since then. So overall, I would say that Lisa is very healthy. And when I look back and I think about when Lisa turned 21, we had a plan for her that we thought would be the plan for her life. Lisa had attended a specialized school, a day school, from ages 3 to 21, and she loved it there. It was like her home, and it was a campus with many buildings, and they had developed an adult day program that was a really great program where they did as much as they could integrating the adults into the community. And so Lisa started to attend that when she was 21, and she felt very, very happy there. It was just a continuation of her prior program, essentially. And we did have Medicaid at that point in New Jersey, which did pay for a caregiver 35 hours a week. I was working full time as I continued to do so. And so our caregiver would pick her up from the program, bring her home, or my husband would pick her up on his way home from work. And we did have some extra hours so that we could have respite so that our caregiver could take care of her on the weekends for us. And so we thought that we were just going to continue that. But then as we got older, we started to look towards the future, and we realized that as other family members made changes in their lives, our family connections in New Jersey were shrinking. Many family members had moved south down to Georgia, including, most importantly, our son and daughter-in-law. So Lisa has one sibling. He's 3 years older than her. And we have always included him in discussions about Lisa and made it clear to him that we did not have an expectation that he would care for her, but that he would oversee her care. And he has more than agreed to do that, as has his wife. And she has been incredibly supportive. And but they did move to Atlanta, and they told us we're not coming back to the Northeast. We realized the weathers in New Jersey really were not good for Lisa. She can't walk outside when it's snowy or icy. She doesn't like the cold. So we realized we needed to go south, and we were going to wait until maybe we had to. But then we thought, we didn't want Lisa to be 800 miles from her brother if something happened and he all of a sudden had to take over. It's hard enough to manage the bureaucracy of these funding systems when you are in the state. But to be far away, we thought that would be impossible. So we decided to come down here to Georgia and to move into a community where I actually have 2 sisters who live in this neighborhood. And so we had close relatives nearby, and it, at that point, would be an hour from our son. So we made a decision where we would move, and we had criteria in mind. We said we need a home that Lisa can age in and that we would be able to age in as well. So no stairs to get into the home, 2 bedrooms on the main floor, 2 bathrooms, a walkable neighborhood, and then of course, close to family. So we found our home in 2018 and we bought it, and then we sold our home in New Jersey in 2019 and moved. And since we had an address in Georgia already, I thought that I could begin to file the paperwork for Medicaid funding, because Lisa did already have Medicaid in New Jersey. And because my husband was over 65 at that point, she also had Medicare. So Medicare was her primary and Medicaid was her secondary. And I'm glad that we had Medicare for her, because it took an entire year for us to get Medicaid approval once we moved to Georgia. So they would not even consider her application until she was a full-time resident of Georgia and was no longer receiving Medicaid funds in New Jersey. And so we had to wait until we moved here and then started the process. And it took 1 year. And I felt like that was a long time, because it was an incredible financial burden on us. Since I was working, I had to work, and we had to have a caregiver for her. So we were paying out of pocket for a caregiver as well as a day program. We found a local day program. We had also found that before we moved as well. That also figured into our decision. We thought, oh, well, she can go to a day program like she just did in New Jersey. She liked that. And we found a really good program, and she started to attend there. And it took 1 year to get funding, which I have now learned is a short time. It is much more likely that it will take something like what Shanna described, like 7 or 8 or 10 years. So for families who are thinking about making a switch, of moving to a different state, if you are here in the US, you should find out about the process and perhaps plan financially in advance, so that you can cover whatever you need to cover in that transition time, because it was challenging. We did find a caregiver who we trusted, and this is someone who was referred to us. And what we were able to do is we were able to finally have Lisa have a Medicaid funded program. And if you think about it, we moved 6 months before the pandemic. So when we got approved, it was in the middle of the pandemic. So everything was closed. And so the only thing they were paying for was the caregiver coming to our house every day, and it was her and Lisa. And Lisa really couldn't engage in any community activities. But we were waiting, as the day program reopened, we were waiting for her to resume those day services. But 2 years later, the program has been unable to take her back, because they just can't staff at the level that's needed to deal with Lisa's issues. As was described earlier, most individuals with Rett syndrome need one-on-one care because of the level of dependence for all of their basic needs. And the program just cannot find enough staff to be able to safely take care of Lisa. So this is something that I think is very common across the US. And I just read an article today that the Georgia legislature is going to be taking this up as an issue in 2023, because one of the barriers is the low pay. So that's something that we're going to turn our advocacy efforts to in 2023, because that will help us keep our current caregiver as well as hire new caregivers in the future as we need them. So what we decided to do then was to build a day program for Lisa that was her own program. So we chose to go the self-directed route. So I had to take some training to become approved through the Medicaid program, and now I self-direct her care. So Lisa has a case manager who oversees her budget. She has an agency that handles all the budget and pays all of the invoices. And she is approved for 35 hours a week of one-on-one care. So that's the caregiver coming to the home and taking care of her. She also has funding for group services that are in the community. And what we were able to find was an agency about an hour away that was set up for young adults with disabilities. It was set up as a private foundation by a family to serve the needs of their son with autism, and they became a vendor for the state, and now they provide all kinds of services at this location, services for health and wellness. So there are special exercise classes, yoga, music therapy, and they are all adapted to the needs of the individual. So Lisa's budget pays for that. She goes there 2 hours a week and she takes a special exercise class and she goes to yoga. She also does Sunday school on Sundays on Zoom. And then on Monday, she goes to the church for a fellowship where they have created a special needs ministry where she is with other young adults who have disabilities and they're caregivers, and she enjoys that. She comes, I work in a clinic, she comes here for physical therapy weekly, and she's also getting occupational therapy. And it's interesting, she's 33 years old and her skills are not declining, which is surprising to some people because that was what was thought about a long time, that this was a degenerative disorder, and it is not. And Lisa continues to do well. So, and she also goes shopping with her caregiver. Her budget also pays for her medical supplies and it pays for respite. So when I think back, it was a very difficult transition, but I am very pleased that we did it in advance. I wish if I could go back that I had planned a little better, recognizing that there would be this lag time between getting the Medicaid funding approved. But I'm glad that we did it now because we can take a deep breath and we can say, okay, we're good now. And we hope that we, as well as Lisa, can age in our home for the next 10 years. We keep our son, who is, he will be Lisa's guardian if we are no longer able to make decisions for her. And we keep him apprised of her care. Every year in January, I update. I have it's a file. It's gotten pretty long, but it's an electronic document where everything is written out for him and it's updated because we all know this language about Medicaid, Medicare, funding, this, that, respite. But for the person who doesn't live it like we do, that's a hard vocabulary to understand. So I update this document for him every year with a list and the names of everyone who's important in her life and all of their phone numbers, including all of her physicians and what they handle. And we also have started to include him on conference calls with her case manager, and we hope to have him meet the new case manager in the coming year so that I will worry less, and also the anxiety for him will be less as well. If you can plan for those kinds of things, to communicate all of that information with your loved ones or whoever you envision will be in charge, I think that will go a long way to easing the worry that we all have as our wonderful children are getting older. So thank you so much, and I'll turn it back to Paige.
Okay. Thank you, Teresa. Gosh, that was chock full of information and well done. Continue to learn. We learn as we go, right? We learn on the job, as I say, in Rett syndrome. Well, we are at the top of the hour, so I would like it if all of our speakers could please turn your cameras back on, and thank you. I want all of our attendees to just take a look at these beautiful faces, look at these beautiful lives. I know that we all have our fears, anxieties, concerns about what adulthood is going to look like for our children, but I think you've seen a wonderful example in a few different states of some families that have thought creatively, have thought about their child. Where your child is on the spectrum with Rett syndrome is certainly going to dictate what kind of program he or she may be able to take part of, right? If they're ambulatory, they may have some more options. If they're more medically fragile and wheelchair bound, maybe not as many options, but it doesn't mean they have no options. And Thank you for sharing all of your stories. What we'd love to do in 2023 is invite some more families from different states who've had other experiences. Come on and maybe do some shorter podcasts with us so that we can continue to get a vision of what life ahead can look like, and have some parents of children who are in their 50s and 60s and maybe don't have parent guardians, but have other adult siblings taking care, come and share their stories. Perhaps they've become a ward of the state, or in residential care or institutions where power of attorney is in the hands of someone who's not an immediate family member. We have good stories to share, and I think really that removes a lot of the fear for a lot of us. So as my painting behind us says, I just want everyone to take a deep breath, take each day as it comes, make a plan, be flexible, know how to bend so you don't break. Thank you for being with us today. We do have one question that came in I wanted to answer, and that is if IRSF does have a plan for centers of excellence to deal with adults. And I want to really have everybody understand that our centers of excellence will see children of all ages. So even though many of the centers of excellence live in children's hospitals, they are outpatient centers, and they will see all of your children. And I highly recommend, if you are able, to have your child visit a center of excellence. And a reminder from our part 1 talk, RettEd for transitioning to adulthood, that we are working with the Child Neurology Foundation to develop a transition of care toolkit that is specifically designed for Rett syndrome. And we hope that that will help you transition your care to adult care in your local communities. Okay, so what I'd like to do is I'm going to have Katie bring back on the slideshow, because I just want to show your 3 families again so that everybody who's attending today can see the beautiful faces of your beautiful children. And we're going to close with just a review, because I just adore all of you. We think that your women are wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today. If there were specific questions that didn't get answered, and I feel that you do need an answer, I know all of our panelists said that they will be happy to email you directly. So thank you for joining us, and look forward to our RettEd calendar for 2023, which will be published soon. And I hope to see you in San Antonio for our Rett Away registration. Information will be coming out in January as well. Thank you all, and have a great day.
Thanks, Paige.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Paige.